Hey there, guys and gals. I didn't notice you. Of course I noticed you. You're my freaking camera. Who even does that? But anyways, welcome back to another episode of Theory. Apparently I do that. So we were going to tear this apart today, but it healed itself, I guess. You know, I don't know if you can even see my face. I don't know if you want to see my face. So anyways, right now I've got the thing wired up. There are two levers on the top. There's this lever. This is the fuel shutoff lever. And this is often seized on these. And we'll take the top off and I'll show you that because that was definitely a key to getting this freed up. So this is the fuel shutoff lever. When it's this way, it's shut off. When it's this way, it's in run. Usually it will have a spring to keep it in the run position so that, you know, like in this little hole to something that'll hold the run. So when you want to shut it off, you pull on it and then it opens again. You always want to park these in the run position because the way they are set up, this little lever can't turn it off. We'll show you the springs inside. You'll see that. But anyways, I was about to do that, and then I started just putting some diesel 911 to clean it out because I didn't have any fresh diesel, and I had this kicking around. And I put it in the injection pump and just started, you know, turning it over. And lo and behold, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but you'll see this port, the bottom port start shooting out fuel. I also have the throttle wired fully open. And they're getting better and better the more I run it. So I've decided to take the coward's way out and leave it alone. So I did actually open up this side cover, fill it up with the diesel 911, rinse it around and flush it out, and it went in clear and came out brown. So I might flush it one more time just for my feel goods. All right, so picture this scene. You're at the side of Grandpa's old tractor or diesel or whatever, it doesn't matter, and it just won't start. And the first thing, and you've bled the system, which I bled this thing so many frickin' times, but your injector lines are not getting any fuel out. So the most likely culprit is the shutoff valve, and we'll take a look at what that looks like in here. So you just take those two acorn nuts off the top after you cut the line, and that's all you got to do. You just have to be careful. All right, so you're at the side of the tractor. You got to take this lever off. There's also a little weird cap thing. Take that off too. Put those aside. And as you lift the cover up, push down on this shaft here. And it should push all the way out, and you might even need to go so far as to just push it a little bit more. A little bit more. And apparently even further than that. Okay, so now you've got the top off. This is the top. This is the shutoff valve, that little pin that goes back and forth. And the hard part is that pin actuates this right here, this little arm that goes back and forth. So we'll show you why that's important to have done that well in a minute. And then you have this lever arm here with a series of 3 holes there. Mine is in the middle position. You're going to want to note that. That's very important. So mine's in the middle position, which is all I need to know. I'm not going to take it out just in case I forget. So the problem is that when you are in the shutoff position, which is forward, you'll notice the throttle plate, this pushes on this spring. This spring is linked to this little guy here. This little guy is the shutoff valve. So the problem is that if it is stuck in the shut position and you have shut the machine off, you got to get just the right place. But if you're in the shut position and you shut the machine off, okay, you can't change how it actuates with that. And then let's say it's stuck there in that position and you pull back. Well, this doesn't actually pull back on the valve. It just pushes it shut. So that's the problem. Some people say, you know, flip the throttle back and forth to free it up or this. This one was stuck. I had to get in there with my fingers and move it a few times. I will say it did free up beautifully, but it definitely took some freeing up. So, I mean, there is still a lot of filth. Wow, actually, that's the problem. This is definitely the bio growth on here. It looks like rust, but it just feels like shmoo, and it comes off so easily. And I don't want to take this apart, but I don't want to have not taken it apart. I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to try to, well, I'm going to go get some fancier rags. You also only want to use lint-free cloths when you're working on this stuff. You don't want to get any dirt in here. Even though, as you can tell, there's a lot of dirt in here, but it's good dirt, honest dirt, whatever. So that's what happens when you leave it sit, though, with the ports open. It didn't rust, but it definitely got full of junk. All right, so we're going to take this off just so I can clean it out, because there's just so much, like, there's little concretions in there. It's got to be cleaner than that. For something that's supposed to be as clean as an operating room, it's got to be cleaner than it is. So, the other component of this 3-pin system is there are 3 holes in the governor plate. So I'm in the bottommost plate, because you see that pin will come right out. If you lose it, there is a way from the numbers on the front or whatnot, there is a way to re-get the information. It's not particularly horrible, but it's... avoid it, right? So someone's been here before me. That's always good, because I'm pretty sure these are supposed to be staked in to keep it from rotating easily. So there's that. I watched Uncle Bubba's video, and he did something and that came out, but apparently I did not do that yet. Oh, I think I got to take... Oh, and here's your rod. So you see how this looks rusty? I'm just going to take one of my regular rags. And there's no rust on it. It's just dirt. So that's why we're going to clean it, because it's filthy. And that looks so much better. So we will put that aside. And I believe we need to get at this little booger. I don't even have a socket that small anyway. I should bend those little tabs down. All right, after doing some digging, I decided to use the right tool. There we go. It is a 1/4 inch if you're wondering. For those following along at home, which should be watching a better video on this subject, really. All right, so this little guy here is the shutoff valve, and this is the object of your ire. So, and all it is just a little passageway that the fuel will travel through here and through the bottom or up. I don't know which direction of travel it is. But the problem is, if it's stuck, you're not getting any fuel into the rest of the pump. So here we are. We're definitely going to clean this top area out, because it's just not great. This is why when people say you can't have the slightest bit of dirt in your injector pump, or it'll never work, it'll blow up, and someone will come to your house and beat your family, I doubt that. Don't get me wrong. It's definitely a thing you want to be as clean as it can be. But there's always a tolerance in life. There's always tolerance. Well, I wish there was. I didn't mean to get that deep that way. That's not really what I'm about. But I work in a machine shop, so, everything has a tolerance. That's really what I'm talking about, because that's definitely true. There's nothing perfect in this world. All right, all those weights. I'm looking in here. There are some weights in here you really can't see, and I can't light it up because it's brown on brown with brown. But you can hear them click. That clicking is the sound of them moving. So they're all moving freely, which is also good, because you would not want your that sort of thing to not be moving freely in there. So that top cover's clean. I'm going to clean this stuff up. Now, when I forget, middle hole, bottom pin. Now I'm going to take it out and forget forever. All right, so we're pretty cleaned up. Before we start putting parts in, though, we do want to take this apart. There's some check valve-y stuff in here, and there's also a filter, which I definitely have and will replace at least this once. So, and this is very important on this. There's a lot of crap in this hole. So you're gonna pull it out and put it in order. So you got the spring. You've got the spring little thingy on the bottom. So it goes like that. Filter's definitely got some schmoo in it, but it's not altogether bad. In fact, I may consider blowing it out and reusing it until I reseal this pump, because I definitely will at some point. And there's some more crap, which hopefully I get in the right order. All right. Then there's another spring. That should come out. Okay, got this little guy next. And then in the middle of this is a little slidey boy. So you want to make sure you got that too. And I believe that is all she wrote. Probably put it back together tomorrow and put it on the engine and get her to run, because that's what she needs to do. All right, guys, ignore the spilled diesel on the floor. This thing has a couple leaks in a couple spots I'm gonna have to handle before she goes in the skid steer. But as you see, the injection pump is back on. One thing that a lot of places did not tell you is the position of the run stop switch on this, probably because they assumed you would know. I'm gonna get you guys up close to it. Just for anybody who's trying to do this themselves, this lever right there is the run stop, and that's the stop position and that's the run position, and that should hold true for any Lucas DPA, Cav, whatever, Cav DPA style pumps. So yeah, this is the throttle right here. When you bleed it at the filter on the other side, you bleed it at the top of this right here, you bleed it there, and you bleed it there. So that's the bleed system. We are going to use the cold start because it looks cool, and we're going to try to see if this thing will fire up for us. The cold start is, we'll bring you right over to look at it, is that in there, and I think they call it the hot start system, but we'll show you what it does. And come on. System might not have enough pressure. I don't think it does. That's too bad. It's been working pretty consistently. What's supposed to happen is fire is supposed to come out of there. I don't necessarily know why it's not. Well, I do know, because the system leaks and the pressure bleeds down. So let's crank it for a minute to get that pressurized again. One trick though, if you're gonna crank a diesel like this for a while and you just need it to crank fast, like let's say you're priming something or whatever, take your hand for something this small, but for something else you can use a board, put it right over the intake, and you'll listen to the speed, and I'll pull my hand off and you'll hear it change. Will you? No, you won't. All right, so you put your hand over the hole, and then watch when I remove my hand. Well, it starts right up. Awesome, actually. I'll give it a little throttle, and we'll try that one more time. We'll see what she does. Okay, so it's still not quite wanting to start, so let's try the hot start again. Okay. Let's see if the hot start's got enough prime to it now. Oh, there we go. Hot start's got some fire going. All right, we're gonna crank it and see what happens. Oh, that start wire is getting warm too. And that's it. I didn't want to run any longer than that. We have success. We got an engine that works. How nice. We also have carbon monoxide poisoning. So it's definitely hitting on at least several cylinders, which is all I cared to prove before we install it in the machine. So yeah. So now we got a motor. It sounded reasonably healthy. I know from the oil dribbling out that that's got oil flow. I also checked this this loop line has oil in it when I was cranking it before I started it. Figured out why there was so much leaking oil around here, because the previous guy had already swapped the valve covers, which makes sense because this looked like it was supposed to be on that one, and I was confused. But yeah, and I know that he swapped them because he put a an oil gasket on top of an oil gasket. You only need the one, and actually that one's gonna leak too, but I don't care. That's anything I can reach once it's in the machine. We're just gonna bowl forward through, because we gotta see what'll actually happen once we get the machine in. So I'm gonna probably sit you guys up, and I gotta rip off the starter motor, the bell housing, the flywheel, and then I gotta swap over the alternator mounting bracket, because that also has a lifting loop, whereas this one only has the one lifting loop. So we can get it lifted up, and then swap the oil pan. That's a word. Anyway, so we got a good running engine. We didn't have to rebuild the fuel injection pump. I will say I did a lot of troubleshooting on this, and one of the things I found out is that in the area of this inlet valve, there is a little special shuttle valve that is meant to let you prime the fuel system, so it can push past the transfer pump that leads to the high pressure pump, can push past that and fill the cavity up with oil. Because this whole thing, this whole cavity is full of diesel fuel. So, and basically what happened is I put an electric pump on there that had too much pressure for the application, and it would put it into bypass mode for priming and would never let it get into the injection pump. So we aren't going to talk about how long it took me to figure that out, but it was a long time, and I basically brute forced it by trying every combination of permutation of pump, driving it with a you don't even want to know. It's a pain in the ass, but I'm pretty happy with how this is running. I'm definitely ordering a new mechanical lift pump for it. Not that I think there's anything wrong with this one, but they're like $30 and they're a common failure point. So it's almost a maintenance item at that point. But we have a running diesel, and now we just have to turn it into a skid steer engine from a boat engine, which is, you know, that'll be some work, but not terrible. So, yeah. All right, guys. Well, I'm working on getting the engine sort of changed over. First thing we'll talk about is oil pans and pickups. So this is the original oil pan from the marine engine, and you can see it's got sort of a windage tray low spot, and it has that for an inlet. So pretty different from the way the other one was, which is why I've got this pan here and this suction. So this suction tube goes right there, and actually there is a threaded bolt hole in the bearing cap. So it's going to be right bolt on. That'll be in the right position. It's interesting though, it's definitely not really close to the bottom of this. So you got to make sure you've got proper amount of oil in it. I also have the dipstick tube and everything for this as well. So that's all going to go together. So that was pretty straightforward. I knew I kind of had to do it. I probably could have got away with just leaving the old oil pan on, but it's not worth the effort. One of the things I kind of wanted to do was pull the cover off of here, just right there, because apparently these covers are really scarce, and I don't need the special hole for the water pump, and I have a perfectly usable cover on that. So, you know, maybe be able to sell this for some money. I don't know. But the big reason, I was going to say, you know what, the hell with it, leave it on. But if you see, this one comes around and comes down like a V. This one comes way out and up, and way out and up, and you're missing bolt holes there and there. Those are the motor mount bolt holes. So could I gin something up? Maybe weld some tabs onto that or something? Yeah, but it's not that bad to do what I'm trying to do. What I did here is I got the whole cover pulled off, and unfortunately, well, nice thing is it's all timing gears, And they actually all look like they're in really good shape. Very little wear on them, which is nice. But I basically have to mark each one of these gears, including the lower one, pull all the gears off so I can pull the plate off so that I can do the same thing over there. I mean, this just went from like, oh yeah, it'll be done today, to like, okay, that's an extra, I don't know, 3-4 hours anyways of work to do it right. So, but it has to be done, so it will be done. It's you know, there's no arguing with it, unless I decide to ignore half of the motor mounts for this engine, which, I mean, I don't do that much, but I already took the cover off, so it's too late now. So I'm going to get this thing sort of cleaned up really well here. I'm just going to hose this all down with brake clean because it's all coming off, and that'll let me put a marker mark on each one of these gears, and I'll take them off and make a clear spot. Actually, I can make a clear spot on that workbench there and just lay them all out nicely so they can go back on nicely. This is going to be... It's not even that hard. It's just a matter of, it's another thing where I could screw up and ruin the engine. But I'm just going to zap those out real quick, slap them on there, and see if there's any confusion in removing this. I'm also definitely going to get a new seal for here, because you can see this one's been leaking for a while. And the sealing surface that goes on there is not in terrible shape, so I'm not too worried about that. And I might end up swapping the pulley arrangement off that one, but I don't think I have a socket big enough for that. Oh, well, actually, it doesn't matter, because that'll come off easy, because it's seized as hell. So, yeah, so that's the new wrench in the works. I mean, it's never as simple as it could be, but it's never impossible either, so we'll get her. All right, here's the timing gear set off of the machine. I marked it and I painted. There were other timing marks already on there. I couldn't spin it till they lined up, so I used some of the existing slice marks in it, and then I just put poked marks in the other gears, and I put a little paint on them too, so I knew which marks were mine, and I took a picture of it. And I put a mark on this one as well. The big thing to know here, though, is that do not rotate this. As long as you don't rotate this, you're going to be pretty much okay. So this is probably about, well, that's what it looks like. Oh, and they put a stud right there. And because of how this rotates, you have to take the water pump off as well. So you take off the water pump and this stud to get this plate off. So it's a lot of fun. There are the two covers. You can see on the old engine, which is not surprising, the seal is, well, completely shagged. You can see there how much stuff's been leaking out of it. So, yeah, I wish I could get further along with this. It's supposed to be dressed today and ready to go in, but that is that's not going to happen. This is the other one. The big difference is that in this one, the bearing or the bushing arrangement for the injection pump is made out of steel in the 4108, and in the 4107, it's a bronze assembly like this, which actually came out quite easily. I suspect it's not meant to. There's some signs of fretting, like this has rotated in the bore, whereas this is supposed to be the rotating surface. So I will definitely use some bearing retaining compound when I put that back in the block, just a touch. Kind of a neat arrangement for this big middle gear, because it's not on anything. Like this one's on the camshaft, this one's on the injection pump, the one down here is on the crankshaft. Well, this one sits on this little stick out thing, which is the bearing surface. This will have to be perfectly clean. And then this thing on the inside here, and there's a little plate on the middle. And so what it does is the plate plugs off this hole, and so the oil comes up through the middle hole and comes out the sides there. And so this is a pressurized oiled thing, which is probably why the bearings look so good after so long. They really don't look worn at all. So I'm just briefly pausing in my marathon sprint here to show you guys something interesting. So this down here is the bearing surface where that rope gasket is. And if at first you said, hey, there's this big cut in it, well, that's bad. That means the surface is ruined. And don't get me wrong, the surface itself is not what I would hope it to be, but that groove is a spiral. And what it's meant to do is suck the oil that's trying to flow back in, just screw it back in. This is definitely an older way to do it, but it's a way that a lot of engines used to have oil seals. So the oil can kind of leak out and get screwed back into the self. Seems strange to me. It is one of those things that, does it work? Kinda. It works well enough for the purpose. So I just wanted to show that because I saw that originally and I was like, why am I looking at a spiral right there? And I hope you guys can see it pretty well. And I was I was surprised for a minute until I realized what it was. So I'm going to try to get in there with a rag and just clean it out really well. Maybe Scotch-Brite a little bit if there's any rough spots. But kind of a letdown, I suppose. But you did get to see the engine run for the first time. And hopefully next week I'll just fast forward through some stuff and it'll be just putting that back together again, which I'm not going to show too much of that because it does work. Got to stop saying one of these days. Anyhow, that'll be next week and maybe even get it in the machine. It almost certainly won't be running by the end of next week. This is all part of my plan to get this thing turned around in 3 weeks. Well, 3 weeks to the day is today. I missed, but I'll get the gaskets I need for that. I'm going to order them from Transatlantic Diesel. I guess I'm a little bit disappointed by my roadblock situation here, but you know, it happens. So yeah, so that's it for this week, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a great week, and hopefully next week there'll be a skid steer, but probably the week after, because this is I'm sure this isn't the last of the things that on two identical engines aren't.